My name is Rose Watson. I've been married for 10 years and live separately from my mother-in-law, who lives far away. I heard she's retired now and dealing with a bad backache. Because of this, she can't work, and my husband has been sending her money every month. He reminds me to transfer the funds at 1:18 a.m. each month, and I always do it. My husband visits his mother at least once a month, helping out with things she can't do. Then one day, he came back from her place and suddenly started yelling at me. "What the hell have you done?" he roared. I was confused by his sudden anger and just stared blankly. He accused me of not caring about his feelings regarding the money he sends to his mother. "I told you to transfer $11,000 every month," he shouted. "I did transfer it," I said, feeling a knot of anxiety tighten in my stomach. "I'm telling you, it's not been transferred," he yelled, his voice laced with frustration. "Do you have any idea how hard it is to send that money? I understand I've had to take part-time jobs and scrape for money just for that. Knowing all that, why didn't you send it?" "I did send it." "Why are you saying?" "Just calm down a bit," he interrupted, his voice rising. "Calm down? How can I be calm when Mom is struggling because she doesn't get the money from you? She's even started doing piecework." "But I did send it," I insisted, feeling a wave of panic wash over me. "Are you saying my mom is lying?" "There's no way my mom would lie to me," he retorted, his voice hardening. "You can't just make an assumption and then get mad when it's not true." I cried, feeling tears prick my eyes. "I don't even know why this is happening. I've been sending her the money you give me every month. Then why is she doing piecework?" "She's in pain, lifting heavy boxes," he exclaimed. "I don't know about that," I said, feeling increasingly overwhelmed. "I haven't seen it. You never go to my family home." "I go every month, but you never come with me." "You just don't care about my mom," he accused, his voice dripping with venom. "That's not true," I protested, my voice cracking. "There's no need for me to go every month, and it's so far away. I don't want to waste my only day off." "Waste your day off?" "It's visiting family," he shouted. "How can that be a waste?" "Well, that's your family," I countered, feeling my anger simmering. "You wouldn't think twice about it, but you don't go to my family's house." "Did you?" "Of course not," he said coldly. "You married into my family, but I didn't marry into yours." "You shouldn't say things like that," I whispered, my voice trembling. "It only causes trouble." "You're the one causing trouble," he roared. I wondered if he even realized what he was saying, just venting his anger on me. I thought the conversation was going nowhere, so I tried to escape to the kitchen, but he was too angry and followed me. "Running away, huh?" he sneered. "I'm not running away," I said, trying to stay calm. "I just want you to calm down. Maybe we should have a coffee and talk this through." "I don't need that," he said, his eyes blazing. "Give me back all the money I've been giving you to send to my mom." "Hold on," I pleaded, my voice breaking. "Why does it have to come to this? What about our kids?" "I don't care about the kids," he said, his voice cold and harsh. "I don't need a wife who makes my mom suffer." No matter how much I tried to have a rational conversation, my husband just couldn't stay calm. He even stated that he didn't care about our kids despite my desperate attempts to make him believe me. Hours passed with no progress. Finally, feeling there was no other option after 10 years together, I quietly responded to his demand for divorce. "All right," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Divorce it is." Kicked out by my husband, I left the house with our child. "Make sure you file the divorce papers," he said, his voice devoid of emotion. Conveniently, he had already prepared the divorce papers as if he knew this would happen. Though I never imagined I'd have to sign such documents, there was no other choice. I left the house, went straight to the office to file the papers, and decided to stay at my parents' house for now. My child was shocked by this sudden turn of events, but all I could do was reassure them with empty words. "It's going to be okay," I said, my voice shaky, though I had no idea if it would be. After settling down in a new place with my child, I got a call from my ex-husband, Mark. "Something weird is happening," he said, his voice sounding different, almost desperate. "What do you want with me?" I asked, my voice cool and distant. "A stranger now?" "I know we're strangers. You call me suddenly, Don't even ask about your child, and say something weird is happening. You sound much weirder, you know. Well, here's the thing, he said, his voice softening. I've been sending the money to my mom myself, but she says it's not being transferred. So she had to do piecework to get by. Now I get it, I said, my anger flaring. That's why you were so angry. You thought I was pocketing the money. Yeah, that's right, he said. But even when you transferred it yourself, it didn't get there. Yeah, that's what's happening, I said, feeling a surge of confusion. So doesn't that mean it wasn't me? Well, I don't know about that, he said, his voice hesitant. What? I asked, my eyebrows furrowing. When you were in charge, maybe you were pocketing the money? That's awful, he said, sounding defensive. If that's what you think, then I'll go to your family's house myself. What are you going to do there? I asked, my curiosity piqued. Maybe I'll find out something if I go, he said, his voice resolute. Yeah, maybe so, I said, my heart pounding with a mixture of apprehension and intrigue. We ended up going to my husband's family house together for the first time in a while. When we got there, his sister, Selena, was present. Oh, why are you here, Selena? I asked, my voice laced with surprise. I came back because I'm worried about Mom, she said, her voice calm and composed. What about your husband? I asked, my eyebrows raised. We're divorced, just like Mark, she said, a hint of bitterness in her voice. So you divorced and came back to your family home? I asked, my mind racing. Yes, she said, her eyes meeting mine. When did you come back? 6 months ago, she said, her voice flat. 6 months, I said, feeling a chill run down my spine. Never mind that. Mom, is it true that you didn't receive the money I sent? It's true, my mother-in-law said, her voice heavy with disappointment. It doesn't change the fact that the money wasn't received, whether both of you are here or not. But did you print out your account record in your bank book lately? I asked, my voice sharp. Yes, I did, she said, her eyes meeting mine. Just 2 days ago. Can I see the bank book? I asked, my voice unwavering. Sure, she said, her face betraying no emotion. You can't show that, Selena said, her voice laced with panic. Why would you show a bank book to someone else? You're a stranger now. Why would you think she'd show you something so important? Are you out of your mind? But we can't know if the money wasn't deposited unless we check, I said, my voice steady. You don't need to see it, Selena said, her voice rising. I'll look. I'm her son. It shouldn't matter. Fine. Look, my mother-in-law said, her voice weary. There's hardly anything in there anyway. My mother-in-law said this and then fetched the bank book from a drawer in the next room. But when we looked at the bank book, there were deposits and withdrawals. Look, Mark, I said, pointing to a deposit. There's a deposit from you here, and it was withdrawn the next day. That's quite punctual. Before this, even if you deposited it, it wasn't withdrawn immediately. I couldn't go to the bank much because of my back pain. I would wait until it was necessary. But since Selena came back, she's been going to the bank for me, which has been a big help ever since. Selena came back and she's been the one going to the bank? I said, my voice rising in disbelief. The money was always withdrawn the next day, according to the bank book. Mark, and I instinctively looked at her. What? I don't know anything about this, she said desperately, her voice barely above a whisper. But from what we see here, it looks like you withdrew it, Selena, I said, my voice cold and hard. Mom doesn't go to the bank, and maybe someone else has Mom's card and is withdrawing the money every month. I don't have a card, Selena said, her eyes darting around the room. I'm afraid of losing it, so I never made one. Tell the truth, Selena, I said, my voice firm. All right, she said, her voice cracking. It was me. Mom told me to withdraw the $1,000 she was getting each month. I saw it was being deposited every month, so I thought borrowing a little bit would be okay. If you're borrowing it, are you planning to pay it back? I asked, my voice laced with suspicion. I intend to pay it back, she said, her voice barely a whisper. I just don't have the money for it right now. Why would you do such a thing? I asked, my voice filled with anger. Well, I needed the money, she said, her eyes downcast. I only borrowed it because I had to. Besides, Mom's managing to get by, isn't that fine? Were you that desperate for money? His mother asked, her voice softening, her tone laced with concern. Then Selena completely changed her tone from her previous assertiveness, now playing the role of a pitiful victim. If that's the case, it can't be helped. Yeah, a sister was in trouble. It's the family's job to help, Mark said, his voice laced with a strange, unsettling calmness. After all of his rage and accusations towards me, Mark forgave his sister as if nothing had happened. Hey, I was called the thief over this, I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. And now you're just going to let it go because it's your sister? It can't be helped. She said she's in trouble, Mark said, his voice flat. That's fine for your money, I said, my voice rising in frustration. But don't you have something to say to me? Not really, he said, his eyes avoiding mine. No, not even an apology after all the horrible things you said to me. Why should I apologize? Selena said, her voice defiant. I was hurt by what you said. In such a fragile mental state. What? Anyway, it's not like I did anything wrong, right? Selena was having a hard time, so this happened. It's not Mark's fault. He doesn't need to apologize. Even his mother said this. Isn't this just like being surrounded by enemies? Even if I speak the truth, this place is hostile territory. There's no doubt that anything I say will be met with opposition. Even though a quick look at the bank book would have clarified everything, I had to travel all this way just to be treated like this. Fine, I said, my voice trembling with anger. If cutting ties with you cost me this much, it's a small price to pay. I'm leaving. Drive me to the station, I said, my voice barely a whisper. Huh? Why do I have to take you? Mark said, his voice laced with annoyance. What? We're divorced first, remember? I don't have to do anything for you, a stranger. Because I came all this way for you. Did I? I don't remember asking you to come, he said, his voice cold. I just wanted some advice. You came here on your own. You can leave on your own too. That's right, Selena said, her voice dripping with venom. You're not a couple anymore. Why should he take you? What a group. No thank you or sorry for solving the issue. After spending 10 years with such a man, it felt like such a waste of time. Fine, I said, my voice filled with resignation. I'll take a taxi. I don't need you. Yeah, that's probably best, Mark said, his voice cold and emotionless. Frustrated, I called a taxi and somehow managed to get home. As I got home, tears of frustration streamed down my face, and I swore never to listen to that man again. But then, after a while, my husband called me. Maybe he had changed his mind and was about to apologize for what happened. Maybe he'd say he had to act that way in front of his sister and mother. But my expectations were shattered. Can you lend me some money? He said, his voice lacking its usual arrogance. Shouldn't you say something to me first? I asked, my voice laced with sarcasm. Oh, long time no see, he said, his voice flippant. That's not what I mean. You're being troublesome, you know. It's not normal to ask for money without even apologizing first. That's not true, he said, his voice defensive. We were a married couple after all. You could say we were a united fate. That's not the case anymore, I said, my voice cold. The day we split up, our united fate dissolved. I still think we're a united fate, though, he said, his voice laced with a strange mixture of desperation and entitlement. So lend me some money, would you? Why? I asked, my curiosity piqued. The truth is, I found out Selena has a huge debt, he said, his voice sounding almost apologetic. Wait, I said, my eyebrows furrowing. It's been quite a while since that day. Didn't you ask her what she spent the money on? I couldn't ask her that, he said, his voice dropping to a whisper. It would have been too pitiful. Money is a delicate subject. Maybe her ex-husband had something to do with it. Or there might be some other reason. Sure, there must be some reason. But you should have asked about it for the future, right? I trusted her because we're family, I said, my voice laced with bitterness. And yet there was no trust for me at all. Well, I've known Selena way longer than I've known you, he said, his voice defensive. Yeah, since we were born. That's why I trusted her. I thought everything would be fine, but in the end, it wasn't fine. So what happened? I asked, my voice filled with curiosity and a hint of schadenfreude. It wasn't fine? Well, it turns out she had a huge debt, he said, his voice dropping to a whisper. And the $1,000 a month wasn't enough. How much does she need then? I asked, my eyebrows raised. She wants to repay it all at once, he said, his voice strained. Paying it off in one go would indeed save on interest, but I don't have that kind of savings. So why did you contact me? Because you said you had a good amount of savings when we were in the car going to your parents' house, he said, his voice pleading. I remember being insulted by him saying I must have been struggling without money since our divorce, and that I would have stolen the money if he continued to ask to make the transfers. Angered by his belittling words and the assumption that I couldn't survive on a part-time job, I ended up revealing that I was trading stocks and making a good profit. But would that lead to an ex-wife being asked for a loan? Selena says she's in debt for $30 million, he said, his voice trembling. $30 million? I asked, my jaw dropping. Yes, so please lend me the money. It's okay, right? First, why does she have such a huge debt? I asked, my voice laced with curiosity. I was curious too, so I asked her, he said, his voice sounding defeated. It turns out most of it was from shopping, and it's all brand items. She just can't control her desire when she sees them, and she ends up buying things. And she put everything on revolving credit, so the interest adds up, and she keeps buying more every month. Before she knew it, her debt reached $30 million. She's careless, he said, laughing it off. His carelessness is quite careless himself. She didn't understand how revolving credit works, he said, his voice filled with a mixture of exasperation and pity. She thought she could just pay a set amount each month, and eventually it would be paid off. I guess I can understand that feeling. I can't understand it at all, I said, my voice laced with disbelief. How could she take such a risk? And wasn't this the reason for her divorce? Now she finally realized the interest is piling up and is becoming a serious problem, he said, his voice sounding defeated. So she came crying to me, but I don't have that kind of money. I told her I couldn't give more than $1,000 a month. Then she suggested borrowing from you. What? I asked, my voice sharp. Why me? You said we were strangers, and you didn't even need to drive me to the station. That's all in the past. The past should be washed away like water under the bridge, he said, his voice pleading. What a selfish and convenient way of thinking. Would anyone accept that? So you can afford to lend it, right? He asked, his voice filled with hope. Well, yes, I do have that much in savings, I said, my voice filled with a mixture of annoyance and amusement. Then lend it to me, he said, his voice desperate. I just made a lot of money with stocks recently. So you win some, you lose some with stocks, right? Yes, yeah, that makes sense, I said, my voice laced with sarcasm. But didn't you say stocks were like gambling? Isn't it gambling? You always ridiculed me for playing the stock market, calling it a gamble, right? Did I? He asked, his voice sounding sheepish. When you wanted a divorce, you hurried to separate because you said having a wife who gambles on stocks would lead to trouble. Well, I said that when I didn't know how much you had saved, he said, his voice laced with regret. So that's why you asked me how much I had that time. You ridiculed me, but then I mentioned I had savings. Well, yeah, he said, his voice sounding embarrassed. I didn't expect you to have that much, but I'm glad I asked. But even at that stage, you still mocked his gambling, I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Well, yeah, he said, his voice dropping to a whisper. But that's a small thing. Let's not worry about it. I was foolish. All right, I said, my voice laced with disbelief. That's not all right. You were cruel, and now you want money I saved for our child. You're worrying too much, he said, his voice dismissive. Our child won't need that money for a long time. It's silly to start saving from now. Money rots if you don't use it. Money rots? I asked, my eyebrows raised. I've never heard of money rotting. Think of this as an investment, he said, his voice sounding desperate. It's like investing in me. Why would I invest in you? I asked, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Just do it. Lending me the money would be the smartest move, right? He said, his voice pleading. Look, I said, my voice firm. If I lend you money, it won't come back, right? You're still sending $11,000 a month to your mom. Where will you find the money to pay me back? All right, he said, his voice desperate. I'll pay back $1,000 a month. Are you crazy? I asked, my voice filled with disbelief. How many years do you think it will take to repay it that way? Don't say that, he said, his voice cracking. I regret it. Regret it. If we hadn't split up, I wouldn't have to beg you for money now. I have to ask, isn't that unjust? So you're just after my money? I asked, my voice laced with suspicion. No, it's not like that, he said, his voice pleading. We don't have love, but we can rely on each other. It feels like I'm only being relied upon, I said, my voice filled with anger. You're so rigid. Thinking like that won't make you happy. We could even remarry. I didn't mind our marriage that much. Wow, I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. I do mind. I don't want to be with someone who can't apologize. Fine, he said, his voice defeated. I apologize. Sorry, is that good enough? I asked, my voice laced with sarcasm. What are you apologizing for? I asked, my voice filled with frustration. Explain in 400 characters or less what you did wrong. He said, his voice trailing off. I just apologized because you said so. Pathetic, I said, my voice filled with disgust. Don't ever call me again. Why? He asked, his voice pleading. I apologized, so will you remarry me or help me? My sister is suffering. Shut up, I said, my voice filled with rage. Go to hell. Saying so, I forcefully ended the call and blocked his number. Later, I heard from mutual friends that Mark, despite saying it was impossible, couldn't refuse Selena. Not only was he constantly nagged by Selena, but he was also persuaded by his mother to help. Consequently, he ended up borrowing money from a consumer finance company to repay her debt in full. Everything was settled, assuming Selena would work and gradually repay the debt. They thought so. However, far from working, she resumed her shopping habits, despite having suffered before. She again made purchases on revolving credit. This burden eventually fell directly upon Mark to handle. When they confronted her about why things turned out this way, she reportedly said, I never intended to buy anything. By the time I realized it, I had already processed the credit. Mark and his mother, naively believing Selena's words, just accepted it, saying she must be sick. They neither devised any solutions nor took her to a hospital despite thinking she was ill. While saying this, Selena, wearing expensive clothes and jewelry, is reportedly laughing over tea with friends, saying, Really, Mark is so easy to manipulate. Eventually, they couldn't escape the debt and had to sell their family home. Now, Mark, his mother, and Selena ended up living together, but they couldn't afford the rent for the apartment they used to live in, so the three of them moved. Their life is quite difficult now. It seems only Selena is enjoying herself, but neither Mark nor his mother realizes this. On the other hand, I continued to profit from the stock market and now live a comfortable life in a spacious apartment with my child.